That speaker view on your top right is going to be the best viewing experience as always. You can toggle into that. And then on your bottom right, the chat is open. You could say hello, and we're going to be grabbing questions as we go along today. Please don't be shy. We'll try to answer as many as possible. For all of those who joined us a couple of weeks ago to talk about service fees with Kristen Perry and want to either rewatch it or catch up on other episodes, you can access them all on our YouTube page. The address is www.youtube.com/travelmarketreport. We're going to drop the link in the chat now if someone on the TMR team can drop that in there. If you have a Gmail account or are registered with Google, you can fairly easily subscribe for notifications on any new videos that go up. We publish on there fairly regularly. And aside from longer videos, we publish a lot of shorter ones too. We know travel advisors are busy now, so we're trying to make the content as accessible as possible. There's a lot of info on service fees, on terms and conditions, on travel insurance, and it's all available on demand there. You can catch it on our TMR's training tab too. New today on that page is an interview with Vanessa McGovern from Gifted. She spoke to me for our podcast called Check In, and she talks about how she got up the nerve to take these giant entrepreneurial leaps into business ownership. And she talks about her first experience in travel, which was working as a kids counselor on a celebrity cruise line, as a celebrity cruises ship, and all that came with that. And it was really a fun and interesting conversation. You could check that out on YouTube as well. Okay, so we have a few more people in the waiting room. Let me go ahead and admit them. But let's kick off today's show. Today, I'm very happy to welcome Darlene McClung from AAA Carolinas. Darlene's here to talk about guided vacations, and this is a topic we've touched on during this series before, but we have yet to dedicate a whole hour to it. So I'm very excited to talk about it. It's something I'm really interested in, and I want to say first, thank you so much, Darlene, for taking the time to talk to us today, and welcome to the series.
Thank
Okay, so I want to get into guided vacations, but first I want to sort of set the stage. I was hoping you could give us a little bit about your background, Darlene, and what kind of things you're hearing from clients about booking travel right now.
Yeah, I've been a travel agent for close to 30 years. Worked for Virtuoso, so I've done a lot of luxury. I'm now with AAA in the Carolinas. Um, Absolutely love it. I've been doing basically leisure travel my entire career. A lot of clients are ready to travel. Some people are just kind of waiting until things get a little more settled, but a lot of business coming in. Actually, this month I might break a sales record on my all-time sales, so it's good.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on that too. I'm sure after the last year, that is
Yes.
tremendously good news for you and the team there too.
Yeah, it is.
So, I mean, you mentioned clients right now. Some of them are holding off, but some of them are booking, and clearly you have some bookings coming in. What type? I'm wondering what type of bookings are coming in. What type of segments and destinations are most popular for you right now?
The most popular for me right now are the countries that stepped up and said, hey, we will take the vaccinated travelers, like Iceland and Greece. Those are very popular right now. So, as far as like international travel, those are probably my top ones, as well as Egypt, which
Wow.
is kind of off the chain. Like, usually I don't have a lot of people asking for Egypt, but this year I've probably booked 10 people in the last 2 months, which is a lot for me for Egypt, really.
What?
But a lot of U.S. National parks and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I know, Darlene, you're in your office right now, so we are hearing a little reverb, but hopefully we can sort that out. But I want to ask you about Egypt because that just I think that's so interesting to me that Egypt is a trending destination for you. And do you have any idea why that's happening with your clients?
Honestly, it's funny you asked me that because one of my clients was in here and she said, they're unearthing some of these tombs and new artifacts. And she said, I think they're just bringing them out now to get travel, people excited for travel. I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that. But yeah, I mean, they have discovered some new things recently. They've been very proactive in advertising as far as in tourism. That was my last trip out of the country before COVID. I did Egypt and Jordan on an escorted tour. And honestly, it was amazing. It was not even really on my bucket list, but I made it in our President's Club, so that was the trip we got,
Mhm.
and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. The cruising on the Nile River was super cool. I mean, it was very different from what I was used to doing, but I've had a lot of people asking about it this year, and I really think they're vamping up their tourism as well because I see it on ads on Facebook and online, a lot of stuff, a lot of places.
Um, okay, so we have some questions about the audio in the chat. Darlene, I don't know if you want to try the headset again. Maybe that'll improve
Is
the
it not
audio a bit
working?
better. Just
Yeah,
before we sort of get into it today.
yeah.
And yeah, take your time, but I want to know for the people in the chat. I see people responding in the chat. I want to know if there's anyone who is getting Egypt inquiries because that's just super interesting to me, or if there's any other destinations that you're getting right now interest from clients that really wasn't on your list or wasn't in your expectations for 2021. Because I know domestic travel was supposed to be the big thing for 21, but I know the pent up demand for international travel is certainly there as well. Um,
Can you hear me on this?
yeah, that's a bit better. I think I do appreciate that too, and I think
Yeah.
hopefully that's a bit better for everybody in the chat. We have a couple of advisors who have gotten Egypt's requests in Croatia. It is. I mean, I know the biggest destinations for North Americans are typically the highlights are in Europe are like Italy. I know is always big, and Ireland. But it is interesting that there's getting there does seem to be a drive for outside destinations. Michelle Pett says Russia seems to be on pause. She got outside the box request was a river cruise in Russia, Greece, Croatia, Italy for the summer. So it's great to hear. It's great to hear sort of our variety of destinations.
Croatia's been big for me post pandemic. Like, I mean, pre pandemic. I mean, I was selling tons of Croatia before COVID hit.
Yeah, Croatia. I know Game of Thrones got sort of a little
Yeah.
publicity. Yeah, from in Croatia too. So I think that's a big one. But let's get into the topic of the day, which is guided vacations specifically. First, I want to ask you, who is your typical clientele for guided vacations? I mean, who are the typical clients coming to you looking for those specific kind of bookings?
Well, I mean, always, of course, like my retirees, they're looking for ease. They're looking to just show up, have everything taken care of. The luxury traveler that's really wanting everything delivered, kind of everything bundled together. But I I could talk a lot of people into it. I mean, I have women that are just wanting to do a girls trip and they want for safety reasons or for structure. I've sent some younger couples on like the Trafalgar Cost Saver that has a little bit of structure but a ton of free time. So if it's their first time to Europe, and like you said, Italy usually is like the intro to guided vacations or Europe vacations, I should say. So a lot of times I saw it for honeymoons. I mean, it's $1,200 plus air. You can't beat that. You get all your hotels, you get an overview of the must sees, and then you have a ton of free time. So they have, it gives them like a safety net. Like somebody is going to be there and to help out. They're not trying to take on a new country all on their own. So really, I think it's for everybody. But I mean, of course, stereotype, people are going to think it's just for retirees, but that's not true at all.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask about. I wanted to ask about. We spoke about this earlier in the week, but there certainly is a level of misconceptions for guided vacations that you mentioned that you could talk people into it, and I'm curious, is that something you have to sort of work on when you're talking to clients? What do you think are the biggest misconceptions for guided vacations, and in your experience, how has it been different than what you've seen in reality?
Well, a lot of people think you're going to be stuck on a bus for 2 days at a time or something, and you're not. You're not going to have any free time at all. It's all if you pick the right style of escorted tour, right? So they have leisurely, they have fast paced. Of course, I mean, you can start in London and end in Rome and hit each country in one day. But I'm more about doing and encouraging like the regional travel, like where you will take a week to 10 days in one country or maybe two countries and do the leisure type. So you have 2 or 3 days in each place. So you're not feeling that rush. So I think a lot of people think you're going to just be rushed the whole time. And not all escorted tours are by bus. I've done them by train. Did Vietnam. We flew in between cities. We stayed the night on a yacht. I mean, so it's not like you're sitting on a bus. People, I think that's what they think.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And what you mentioned too, the clientele isn't necessarily all retirees like you spoke about. It's not. No, you're getting a lot of different people coming on these guided tours, and it's a great way to see countries, specifically if you haven't been there before either.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And if countries that you're uneasy about, like China, Vietnam, Egypt, I mean, I would never recommend going to Egypt by yourself. I mean, it was hard enough going on an escorted tour. I was stressing out for them when we were in Cairo. The traffic was insane. And just to be able to get around to the different places, you really needed that.
Yeah. So how has COVID in your business impacted guided vacations? Do you think the popularity has decreased or increased because of COVID, because of the uncertainty surrounding it, or has it sort of remained the same?
I think it's going to increase, to be honest with you. Um, First of all, I would not want to get on a plane right now and go to Europe or go anywhere and try to figure out every restriction on my own, right? Like in the past, I would have been fine to just fly, in and get a rail ticket and just go. The guided vacations, they're going to take care of all the protocols for you. They're going to know on a daily what has changed and what hasn't, right? Where you can go, what places allowing entrance of, more than 10 people. So I honestly, I feel like I could sell more right now because I can sell security, and that's what everybody's going to want to leave the country.
Yeah, yeah, that is interesting too. I mean, it is. I've spoke to a couple of travel advisors who got inquiries from clients who wanted to go to two or three different countries in Europe and thought they would have no issue with it. And I mean, it's again, it's another point for booking with a travel advisor versus booking by yourself. But I mean, there's rules and regulations everywhere. In some countries, there's rules between counties and cities. I mean, it's a difficult task right now to put together a big, especially European or international vacation. And having a travel advisor or having a guided vacation company on your side is certainly the way to do it, I think, right now.
Yeah, I agree.
So I wanted to ask about because I'm sure. Well, first of all, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about your clients. You mentioned to me that guided vacations is one of your biggest segments, and river cruises is one of your biggest segments. And I'm curious, do you see a lot of similarities between those two clienteles, and do you see a lot of crossover between those two types of clients that you have?
Yeah, there's a big crossover between those. Definitely. I mean, what it comes down to is the river, you're kind of restricted to the river cities, right? Like you're not getting into Prague or, some of the different places that you could on an escorted tour. So once people have kind of done the rivers and done the Rhine and the Danube, but now want to go to Poland or, somewhere there's not a river,
Yeah.
then this is a great crossover for them, for sure. And then vice versa. I mean, they have a lot of the same similarities. The escorted tours, you're getting to spend the night in these towns, eat locally, go out and have a drink, meet more locals, I feel like, on the tours because your guide is normally from that country, very connected. So there is a good crossover market for sure. That's if I was sending out a marketing to somebody, I would pull up all my river cruisers or vice versa for sure.
Yeah, it is a very similar kind of vacation, I guess, experience because you are seeing the country from the inside as opposed to an ocean cruise where you'd have to dock, get off the ship and get to the town you want to experience. You mentioned earlier in the week, you told me about your first experience with a guided vacation, and I was hoping you could share that with everybody on the call today too.
Yeah. So I was doing a fam trip on an ocean cruise out of Rome, having never been to Italy. I was like, there's no way. And I was going alone. So I was like, there's no way I can fly in and out of Rome and not see Italy. So I had a bunch of credit with Trafalgar. I thought, man, this is the time. Let me do it. So I booked myself on the rail tour. And I thought, this would be a great way. I'll have somebody with me. I can figure this out. It was the best thing I ever done. I always thought I would be an independent traveler, like just want to go figure it out. I learned quick that you waste a lot of time doing that. When you get to go on one of these tours, they know the area. This is what they do. They give you all the overviews and then they tell you all the hidden secrets. So I mean, I would have missed out on a lot of things had I just tried to do it on my own. So, in the friendships you make, I see some people on this chat that I've actually been on escorted tours with. So, I mean, we all become friends for life, and you make a friendship with your tour directors as well, and they're great resources too. We don't live in Croatia, we don't live in these different places, and sometimes we can still reach out to these tour guides and be like, hey, what's really going on over there? This is what I'm seeing on the news, which normally is nothing like what is really going on. So and they give you firsthand, like I have somebody coming with a walker at the Vatican. Can you tell me, so you build relationships with these people. It's a great way to go. And I was surprised. I really never thought I would be the one to do it. And then I took my husband, Paris to Normandy, and he is a lot. He likes to have a good time all the time. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can calm him down enough to be on a bus with all these people. He ended up loving it. He made friends from all over the world. Like he fit right in. It was so easy.
Yeah.
So it is really for everybody.
Yeah, I know. I see some comments in the chat about the audio. We're doing our best.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah. I mean, Darlene's in her office, so I think that there's just a little bit of background noise, but we're gonna work on it. Hopefully our team is on it, so hopefully we'll be able to sort things out. One thing I wanted to ask, you mentioned your experience and how much you enjoyed it and how much your husband enjoyed the experience. What is your repeat rate like with clients you do send on guided vacations?
Majority of all of them go again. It is a huge repeat clientele. In my 30 years, I can only think of like one or two people that come back and said, yeah, that's not really for us.
Yeah.
But they were the type of people that I don't really think anything was for them. Like they were the type that could find fault in anything. But no, majority of everybody goes again. And you know what? They take their neighbors, they take their friends, their kids. Like they love it. And they always, because it's so easy and they want to share it with other people. So they normally all go back.
Yeah, one thing you mentioned. Yeah, also want to talk about. I want to ask you about the pricing for guided vacations and what you've seen. Is it a uniform thing among suppliers that they're getting um, are they getting an all inclusive pricing? Are they getting a different pricing depending on supplier? For a client who's unsure or unfamiliar with how guided vacation pricing works, could you walk us a little bit through that?
So, and this is how I explain it to everybody. I mean, you are kind of pre-packaging your trip. You have all of your accommodations, all of your transportation. Majority of time, all of the breakfast are included. So, right there, you've kind of done your all-inclusive, right? And then we explain, and each tour will tell you exactly what's included. Two breakfasts. I mean, two lunch, five dinners, whatever. And then you can walk people through that and then give them an idea of what they might want for like pocket money for the week. But yeah. And then depending on the price level they're on, we would know what company to put them on. What's their budget? Or do they want everything included? Do they want to go to every cathedral in France? Or would they rather just have an overview and choose the cathedrals they want to go in while they're there? So you kind of got to qualify the client. There are
Yeah.
some that include more and some that include less.
Yeah, and that is a point to be made for travel advisors too, because I know that means all the components will be commissionable for travel advisors when they're booking these kind of vacations.
Right.
So let me ask you about the impact of COVID on guided vacations. I'm
Uh-huh.
curious what kind of impact it had on booking decisions right now. In terms of are clients still interested in flexible cancellation policies when they're asking you to book travel for the future?
Yeah, everybody wants to know upfront what the cancellation policies will be. I'm sure every travel advisor on this call knows we were all blinded to be with the COVID and not being covered under insurance, right? So a pandemic was not covered by cancellation insurance, which none of us knew that because none of us have lived through a pandemic. So we've all learned. And that is the first question the clients want to know. What's my cancellation policy? What will happen if they don't go? And then, having lived through it, we can kind of give them an idea. Majority of the vendors gave travel credits, which was good for us in our industry because we were able to keep the booking and just turn the date. We're not getting paid to do it a second and third time, but we're keeping our customers. So it was kind of beneficial that way. But just depends on the vendor and what their policies are. And you can find that out ahead of time.
Yeah, that is a good point too, because yeah, the rules, hopefully you mentioned lessons learned from pandemic, and I'm very much hoping that none of us will need to use those lessons ever again, but it is good to know how heavy cancellation policies can weigh on the mind of consumers. We have a comment from the chat. Lori Umsheed, and apologies if I have your last name incorrectly said, but she says, I do quite a few of escorted tours, and I decided to take the cost saver type of vacation just to see how it compares to the more higher end tour. She says her advice is to do the more expensive one. It ended up costing us more to do the cost saver one because you have to pay for the meals, the tours, etc. And
And
yeah, is that something you would have to speak to about your clients?
exactly. So for her, she felt like she had to pay more, right? So I I did a cost saver in Vietnam actually, and I absolutely loved it because I'm not one that wants all of the included things. I'm not a history buff. I literally go to a lot of these places just to be there, be part of the culture, to see the scenery. And honestly, I don't even care if I go into some of these buildings. So it just depends on the actual traveler, right? So if
Yeah.
you're a history buff and I know you're going to want to go and see everything, then yes, I would definitely upsell you to something that has everything included. Because yeah, you don't want them to have to come back and be like, oh my gosh, I spent as much money once I got there as I did on the tour. So I would definitely qualify them for sure. But like the younger people that just want a little security and lots of flexibility, it's a good option. Or somebody like me who's really doesn't want to see every cathedral or every monument, it's good for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and Karen, I guess going off of that, Darlene, Karen wants to know, is it fair to say that the more you pay up front, the less you're going to pay during the actual trip?
Yeah, it is. I mean, as far as inclusions, yeah, it would be. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And so any other, please, we have about 20 minutes left. So I appreciate those questions and please keep them coming in the chat. Okay. So you mentioned qualifying clients, and I want to ask about that because I know there's a ton of advisors on the call who maybe have a specialty in cruising or have a specialty in another type of vacation that's not guided vacations. And when you're qualifying clients, new clients in particular, do you have any tips or tricks or questions you generally use to find out how you're going to place them best on their guided vacation?
Yeah, I mean, I do ask qualifying questions like, what are your interests? What is the reason you want to go to Italy? Or
The
why
reason.
are you going to Ireland? If somebody says, I'm going to Ireland because I want to look for family heritage. And so that to me is like, okay, they're going to need some free time because, a guide is not doing that, right? So I'll ask questions like that. Like, are you looking, what are their interests in those places and what do they like to do on a norm? Are they looking to go golfing or, just want to go out and have a few drinks when they're in town or those kind of things.
Okay. So we have a question from Kathy Wright in the chat, and she wants to know if you have any favorite companies to use when you're booking guided vacations. Any favorite suppliers that you will go to for
Yeah.
your bookings?
So my go-to is the TTC brand. I like, they have the Insight Vacations, which is the little higher up from Trafalgar. We have Trafalgar, and then the Cost Saver. That's the kids on the honeymoon, the people that
Yeah.
just want to go and just have a few things included, So that's my go-to. We are preferred partners with them at AAA. I have luxury clients. I book with Tauk. We also book Colette, but my go-to is definitely TTC.
Yeah, and what makes the TTC stand out? Or you mentioned the other suppliers too, and the other suppliers within the TTC family. What makes them stand out? Is it customer service? Is it products? Is it all the above?
It's definitely all of the above, and it is the support staff. In this industry, if I have good support staff, I'm going to support you because I need to be able to take care of my clients if they're on the road before they go. And I need to know that this company has my back, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, for example, this is a true story. I had customers in Rome, and as a AAA member, they got a member benefit as like, an excursion credit for this company. And I am actually sitting on a Royal Caribbean cruise, and I get a text from my client in Italy. She's like, hey, they didn't know I was supposed to have this double benefit. I don't know if there's anything you can do. I text my rep from the cruise. I'm getting a text from Italy. I'm on a cruise texting my rep. She had it fixed within like 2 or 3 hours. So, I mean, I have great relationships with them, and I know they're going to take care of it. I don't have any complaints. That's a big deal. You know, if you
Yeah.
send the volume I do and everybody comes back happy, obviously that's a product you want to support.
Yeah. And if, I mean, I know, again, you mentioned preferred partners, and a lot of advisors will have that through their host or consortia or their agency. And if anyone wants to make any more recommendations for that in the chat for their own experience, you can go ahead and drop them in there too. So I want to talk about, you mentioned what you're hearing now for 2021 for where people want to travel. And I want to ask about 2022 in a little bit. But I know there's a lot of underrated destinations that a lot of advisors use, sort of show their value by recommending to clients. And I was curious if you could give me a couple of yours for different sort of clients. So I have 3 types of clients I'd like to ask you about and see if you can give us a good recommendation. So if you were getting a multi-gen group and you qualified them, what are the sort of go-to destinations in your head that would pop into your mind for the best places to send them for them to have a good vacation?
Costa Rica would be the top of my list. There's really something for all of them there. It keeps the kids entertained, you know, lots of activity, but there's lots of stuff for the older people to just kind of sit back and enjoy. That's always a go-to. The out west vacations, usually my multi-gen groups usually are either doing like, you know, North or South America. They're not going to Europe or anything. I wish they would. That would be awesome. But I have done a few to like Paris and London. But usually my go-to would be like Costa Rica, or there is one that's like an out west with like a dude ranch experience. So the kids are getting that experience, and then the parents are getting the national parks on top of it. So those are kind of my go-to.
Yeah, every time I hear about the Dude Ranch experience, I always think about the movie from the '90s, City Slickers, and I
Yeah.
always, yeah, it's always something in my head that I've always wanted to sort of experience that.
You should definitely do it. I have done it, and it's awesome.
Well, yeah, I'll put again the bucket list. Every time I talk to a travel advisor, the bucket list gets longer, but that's going
Yeah.
on the bucket list too.
Imagine being us. My bucket list is like
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So now I want to know if you had a solo traveler come to you and is looking to have a solo experience somewhere. Are there any destinations that would pop into mind for your recommendations for that?
Yeah, I sell a lot, and because so I have a lot of retired people, widowers or whatever, you know, and escorted touring is a great way because I have never been on an escorted tour where there hasn't been 4 or 5 singles that all get kind of, you know, sat at the same table, you know, become friends, you know. So I would just qualify what their interests are, but I send them the solo travelers. Really, a lot of them go to Europe and, you know, things like that. But it is a really great thing for solo travelers. I've actually done a mailing for solo travelers because they have a thing with escorted touring. You can do a twin share where you pay the same rate as a double, right? Like you pay just the half of that. And then you could be roomed with somebody in your same age group if you want to be, which us travel agents, you all know our fam trips, we all do that. So that's kind of an easy sell. Like I get to go and still just pay what I would if I was you know, 2 people. So, this is a great thing for solo people because you're not really alone. You have people, right? So,
Yeah, I mean, are there any countries in Europe that you think would be perfect for solo travelers? For instance, someone who has never been to Europe, maybe from North America, and wants to, and just thinks of it as this one uniform continent. I mean, where would you start when you
we
were
start them
recommending?
with Italy,
Yeah.
honestly. Italy is usually, like I said, the intro to Europe if somebody has never been. I would try to start there, or London and Paris is a good one too. Like, you know, I don't really like to do too many countries on one trip unless somebody specifically says, I want to run around Europe in 10 days, then I'll do that. But
Yeah.
really, Italy is
It,
my intro, or Paris and London or Ireland. I mean, there's a lot. Just
yeah.
decide who they
Um,
are.
So we have a good comment from Andrea in the chat, or Andrea, it might be either, but she says that she's a solo traveler going to Africa for 2 months, 5 different countries, all tours are guided, which is a great booking to have too.
Yeah, that's awesome. I went to Africa alone and got roomed with a random travel agent from Texas, and it was the best trip. So
Yeah.
you will have a great time. Africa is awesome.
And then the last segment I want to ask you about, just to get your recommendation. If you had a honeymoon, if you had a honeymoon couple, maybe a little adventurous, didn't want to do the typical beach stay or something along those lines, where would you send them on a guided vacation, or where would you sort of present them as possibilities to go?
I would start with Greece. I loved Greece. You know, the mainland Greece as an escorted tour. I did that a few years ago. I had no idea how amazing mainland Greece was. Like, you don't know until you know. So we did that, and then they could maybe fly over to Santorini or Mykonos and do like a 3-night beach to end their honeymoon. You know, so they could still get all of the mainland, see all of the beautiful places, and then relax on an island for 2 or 3 days. That would probably be where I would start.
Okay. Okay. And if anyone has recommendations for any of those three segments, again, the chat is open. I love hearing from everyone. We have a lot of people asking about the TTC, which, yes, does stand for the Travel Corporation. Gate one is recommended by Marjorie for groups too, and I'm sure. I mean, all with suppliers, I think it all comes down to relationships and also how the structure is with your commission, with your host or your consortium or your agency, things like that too. Yeah,
And their reputation, that's a big deal too. You know, a lot of people come in and they see these great gate one packages for these low prices, but don't really work well with travel agents. So do I need somebody that's going to really work well with a travel agent, because I have to be able to stand behind what I'm selling, because guess what? They're not calling the president of gate one. They're coming in to sit in front of me and be
yeah,
like, hey, this sucked or didn't, right? Like, I have to know that I have somebody to go to and they care enough to fix it. So yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I know there's a ton of travel agent groups on Facebook and things like that where you can ask for advice. This chat, I think, is a good vehicle for a lot of advisors. But again, do your research and ask your colleagues. I mean, what's going on? So I want to ask you about how these tour operators are operating during COVID. We spoke about cancellation policies, but how have you heard the experience has changed since COVID has become a thing? Is the group size getting smaller? Is anything on during the trip changing as you go along? I mean, what are the biggest changes you're seeing in this segment?
So a lot of them are putting like wellness coordinators on board to ensure like all the social distancing and all of the COVID measures are being met. That's on top of the
Yeah,
travel director. They're putting an additional person on. I have a group doing the Christmas markets, and the way they are distancing everybody on the bus and the way it's going to work. So, say I have a group of 20 people that are coming, obviously they're friends and see each other and do things together. They would be able to be seated next to each other. Now, if there was another group of 4 people, they could, but they're going to distance the different families or the different small groups that are coming together. So, on the bus, they will have distancing. That's how it started. I'm not sure how it'll end, but
yeah,
that those are some of the things they said they're going to be doing. I know all the different protocols at the hotels. They're going to be able to, tell everybody exactly what they need to do. So they're doing more of, like the wellness stuff. They're telling people ahead of time. They're sending out checklist of this is how it's going to be. Do you accept wearing a mask at this point, this point? So they're letting us know.
now, is the mask a big thing with clients right now? Because I've sort of access to every travel advisor. What's the biggest hang up with clients who want to travel but might be unsure about spending the money for something they perceive as half an experience they would get pre-COVID? And is the mask a big hang up? Is the attractions at destinations that might not be fully open a big hang up? What's the biggest concern your customers have right now?
That they're going to get the same experience that they would have before COVID. Nobody really wants to sign up to go on a tour where it's going to be limited. Like, you're not going to be able to go in to see the things they would have seen, right? So some of my people are kind of holding back to wait and see as things open what the protocols are going to be at the different destinations or attractions. That's the biggest thing. People want the same experience they would have had.
Yeah. And I mean, When you're talking to your supplier partners or the TTC or any supplier partner, what are you hearing about their timeline for returning to some kind of normal? Is it? I mean, I can't imagine it's an easy thing for them to be able to tell you when things will be back to fully normal, especially in international travel. But are you getting any sense from your supplier partners about when things will be looking more like pre-COVID?
I mean, the US destinations are doing really good right
Yeah.
now. I mean, they're sold out. Like you can't even get space on some of them. So they're definitely doing really good. And I think because everything is changing every single day on the European destinations, it's just really hard. I literally, and I didn't verify this or anything, but saw on one of the groups that I'm in that Switzerland is now saying you can come if you're vaccinated, but your vaccine has to have been within 6 months. I'm like, oh Lord, tell me they're not going to do that. Is that really going to be a thing? So, I mean, the tour companies, I mean, the escort, they're saying we're moving forward, and they obviously have been talking to the different local health authorities and stuff, and they feel like things are moving forward. But then we all get the next round of cancellations, and we're thinking, okay, well, I guess that didn't work out. So I think because things are just changing so quickly.
I'm curious when, I mean, you mentioned Switzerland, and I know Germany today or Germany this week had an announcement that they're opening borders to, I think, vaccinated and unvaccinated travelers unvaccinated people need a negative test. But do you use that as an opportunity to reach out to clients when a new country opens or when a new destination opens and says we're starting to welcome people? I mean, is that an opportunity for you to reach out, to email, to call, to shoot some marketing over?
Yeah, that's what I've been doing. I got a thing saying, France is opening, and I knew. So of course, we're all have clients probably sitting on vouchers right now. So I of course look at my voucher list daily. I know who has what. So I know where they were booked to go, and I've had conversations with them during COVID on what maybe they want to do instead, or if they want to do the same. So as soon as I get something that says France is opening, I think when I got that email, France is opening, I know I sent like 20 emails out of just that announcement. So yeah, I have used that to especially reach out to people that were previously booked there, or I know that want to go there.
No. Yeah, and I'm curious if anyone, I mean, I know advisors are using this, especially because we've had such a dearth of good news in 2020, and now the last couple of months, it seems like good news is coming more and more often. It is something to be able to sort of wake up and see those headlines that Germany is opening or France is opening, and be able to share that news with your clients. Okay, so we have about 5 minutes or so left. If there's any outstanding questions, please go ahead and do drop them in the chat. But I do want to ask a couple more. You mentioned the river. Your client tells a lot of river cruising, guided vacation customers. I mean, what other segments are sort of popular for you, Darlene?
Well, I work at AAA, so a lot of people are wanting to do drive vacations, right?
Yeah.
So we have a lot of people wanting to do that this year. I booked more Mexico this year than I have probably booked in the last 5 years combined, because Mexico has no restrictions to come in, and you just now need the negative test to come back. So Mexico was really popular during COVID, just because of how easy it was to get into there. I did a lot of like Sedona, Grand Canyon, out west type stuff during COVID, just because it's the great outdoors. You don't need to be in, a little room or whatever. You can just go and be spaced out and enjoy your own views. So I've done a lot of that too.
Okay. And I mean, do you have any tips for people, for advisors who want to convert the clients you just mentioned, maybe people who go to the all-inclusives in Mexico, or the people who are who are who are interested in the Grand Canyon and those types of outdoor vacations? Any tips for converting them into guided vacation travelers or guided vacation customers?
Yeah, let me tell you, I've been to Yellowstone with my family and we drove. So just do that one time and you can convert anybody to an escorted tour. Okay. So you're in your car 15 hours and it's on you. You're driving. There's no amenities. You don't know, not even GPSs don't work, right? So, I mean, you do that once and you can see the benefit of having somebody else take care of everything. it's really easy for me because I've done it. Got pulled over, got a speeding ticket. My husband thought I was going to drive him off the side of a mountain. Like, so it was just like one of those lampoon vacations. Like, once you do that, oh my God, somebody else could just take care of this and everything. I get to enjoy it too. Like, we get to just show up and enjoy the whole thing. So to me, it's easy, but you have to qualify the person. You have to qualify as far as like the different style. Again, if I know some people, if they're not going 24/7 on vacation, they feel like they did not get their money's worth. I am the exact opposite. If I have to go 24/7, I do not want to go, right? So you just have to qualify the right style of tour. Don't put them on something fast paced if they're not. So that's the biggest thing, really. And I saw that question pop up. The budgets, I mean, like I said, if somebody comes in and has a $2,500 budget per person for a honeymoon, and I know I could sell them on a cost saver to Italy for 1,000 plus air, would you rather not go to Italy than go to Mexico? I mean, that's a no-brainer to me. Like, I can sell anybody on that.
Yeah. So, well, I guess what you're saying is when it comes to budget, or no, it's gonna be about the style of vacation they want to have. You mentioned fast pace or relaxing, and then the budget, and then basically when you have those components and a couple other components, I'm sure, then you can finally recommend the supplier and the type of tour to take.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. We have another question. Kathy Wright, she says when you mentioned your tour out west, she was wondering if that was from a what supplier you went on. If you, I guess, is there any recommendations you have for guided vacations for the Western United States?
There's a lot of vendors. I mean, of course, I book with Trafalgar. We do Colette. I mean, if somebody wants to be on a small group, I can get them on Talc or Inside Luxury. It just depends on their budget, if they have a preference. A big thing with once you get somebody, like I've always tried to get into the Talc market, right? Because obviously the commissions are really high and the tours cost a lot. And they're like any vendor, they have repeat clientele, right? So you have to just qualify the client and then they get loyalty points to come back, right? So once you get somebody on a vendor and they get those loyalty points, trust me, they're getting mailings. They're like, oh wow, I can get another 10%. I'm in, let's go. So once you get them with the right vendor, then they want to go back because they're going to get the perks. Everybody loves a perk.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then we had a question earlier from Michelle. And somebody else followed up on it, but they were wondering when you did your Christmas market tour, what vendor was that with?
Well, I've done two Christmas markets, one on Uniworld. I did a river cruise down the Rhine, and then Inside Vacations.
Okay. And I mean, any tips or advice for advisors who are looking to book those? I'm sure those are going to be popular this year, Christmas markets, if
Yeah,
the travel regulations sort of hold up.
I've done a lot of Christmas markets in Europe. I'm going to tell you, hands down, Germany is probably the best Christmas market. It's not the best representation of a river cruise, though, because you don't get all the other things included, right? You're going specifically for that. So it's not good to sell somebody as a first river cruise, the Christmas markets, but it is definitely a great follow-up one, right? In the escorted tours, I mean, they know exactly which markets to get you into, what's the best time to get there, where they can, where you can set. And one thing I learned is they're not really commercialized. It's not like you're going and it's like Black Friday shopping or something. It's not that at all. It's like the holiday vibe where the community comes out and has some drinks together and they eat and they walk around and they just talk and hang out. It really does put you in the Christmas spirit. That is an amazing trip.
Yeah, and what are you hearing this year about Christmas markets? I'm convinced the demand's pretty high for Christmas markets, but I know the consumers still have to balance the actually getting over to Europe too. So I mean, is it a popular segment this year, and is it a feasible segment as well?
Well, I have a small group that I already have booked, so I'm talking to them. I actually haven't had a lot of people ask me about it this year. Normally, I'm guessing most people are probably waiting to go next year because they were canceled last year. So I'm sure everybody's waiting to make sure they're not going to be canceled again this year. But
Yeah.
it's usually pretty popular, and then it's an easy group to put together. Once you get a few people on there and you start talking about it, people are like thinking, wow, I've always wanted to do that. So
Yeah. I hope so. I hope that answered your question, Michelle. I think we answered all the questions in the chat. I want to give you a couple minutes just to wrap up, Darlene. If there's any other advice you want to lend to the travel advisors on the call about booking guided vacations, particularly the advisors who have yet to sort of dive into this segment, anything you've experienced or any tips for them to become familiar with this segment as a whole?
right. Yeah. I mean, definitely listen to what the clients want to do. I can show people the benefit of booking into a guided vacation just and for the security. And now that COVID, all the new protocols and stuff, especially if you have people that come in, no matter what age they are, if they're looking to go to Europe or somewhere, sell them on the safety of it. Like these people are going to have your back. They're going to know what to do. They're going to help you with everything. But yet explain to them you still can have a lot of free time. I think a lot of people don't understand the amount of free time you can have, right? If you book the right kind of tour. So budget wise, you can pick any budget. If they want to go on a small group, I've been on groups as small as 12 people. So it just depends what kind of traveler they are. Or if they want to go to a destination and they want more time on their own, I send them in ahead of time. Like, so go into Rome 3 days ahead and maybe go down and do the Amalfi Coast, right? And then come back and get the must-sees with the tour and then extend in Venice for 3 or 4 nights to have that time on your own. So you can kind of sell it in combination with other things as well.
Yeah, exactly. And the pre and post I think are important as well. And I know a lot of, I mean, when I came into this industry, I had a lot of misconceptions about guided tours myself. But I mean, even just looking at something that's maybe a little more straightforward in its details, the cruise industry offers an immense range of possibilities, and I think it's the same on guided tours.
Yes, it is.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for Darlene. Again, this was our first guided vacation talk, and I really do appreciate you giving me your time and your opinions on all of this and your advice. And I want to thank everyone else on the call too for joining us today. But again, Darlene, thank you so much for the hour or so, and I really do appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I'll see. This is our last Master Advisor before July 4th. So for everyone in the U.S., happy July 4th. Everyone stay safe. And for everybody else, hopefully we'll see you back here in a couple of weeks. All right. So thanks again, everybody, and I'll see you all very soon.